Hello and welcome to Building Moment. Today, I'm excited to welcome our next guest, Dr. Neelesh, General Manager for HSE Training and Development at Al Tasneem. There's always this sort of a tug of war between speed, productivity, business goals.
You're touching the real ground, conditions. What's actually in the industry? No organization in the world, they don't, budget for any incidents. By putting a helmet, some people think that it is putting a, load on your head, whereas others think that it is going to protect me. Right? If we go through the HSE processes, it delays our productivity. A single incident happened, Texas incident, Gulf of Texas, the BP incident.
It feels like it's holding them back only until an incident occurs. My name is Yash, your host for the show, and today I'm excited to welcome our next guest, Dr. Neelesh, General Manager for HSE Training and Development at Al Tasneem. We'll get to know more about Al Tasneem Group and the journey of building and growing it. So join me in welcoming Dr. Neelesh, who's here to share his journey and insights. Dr. Neelesh, thank you for doing this. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you, Yash, for inviting me. And it's a pleasure for talking with you on this Momentum 91 podcast.
Absolutely. So if you can start with explaining a little bit about what Al Tasneem Group does, and then what you do at Al Tasneem, that'll be a fantastic start.
Sure. So I'm Dr. Neelesh Sogani. I'm working as a General Manager HSE with the Al Tasneem Group. So I recently joined the group, but I'm working in Oman since last 19 years. So Al Tasneem is one of the biggest contracting company, diversified in different fields. So we are in the oil and gas, manufacturing, mining, roads and infrastructure. We are not only in Oman, but also we have extended our legs in North Africa and other part of the Middle East. So as a general manager, health and safety, I'm transforming the HSE, how we manage the day-to-day business in Al Tasneem and getting into the next level. And this is what my core job with Al Tasneem. But being in Oman or being in the industry from last 19 years and almost with a 28 year of experience, so I'm working on transforming HSE well-being and the ESG for building the safer, sustainable and workplaces.
Awesome. So for the folks who are uninitiated, if could you explain what is HSE, what is ESG, what are ESG goals? So just the fundamentals.
So when we talk about the HSE is an abbreviation which is health, safety and environment, and where our core responsibility is that whatever we do as a business, we ensure that people who work for us, they work safely, they go back home safely. And this is added with the new philosophy of ESG, which is environment, social governance, which is hand to hand with the HSE. But we also look about the sustainability, the corporate governance, how the people live, how the people work, they are taken care, and also the responsibility in terms of the impact on the society and on the community as well as on the environment part.
Got it. So no points to the audience for guessing what's going to be the topic of our conversation with Dr. Neelesh today. It's going to be health and safety and wellness of the people who are working, and then we'll also touch some bits on environment and sustainability as well. You've while you've joined Al Tasneem recently, you've been 19 years in Oman. You've worked significantly in HSE as a domain. In your opinion and experience, what have you seen as a consistent challenge in health and safety across multiple organizations that you've worked with or you've interacted with? What is that one consistent challenge that you see?
See, when we talk about the HSE, the repetitive challenge, you go across any industry, whether in oil and gas or construction or mining, the challenge what we get is that what we imagine that how the work should be done and how the work is being carried out. And that is purely because of, sometimes the organization doesn't go for the walk that talks. So in reality, we develop very excellent procedures, risk assessments, method statements, a fantastic, HSE management system. But in reality, when the work is being done, the situation is dynamic, condition changes, and people improvise because of the changing in the deadlines, targets, or
Yeah,
the situation. And this is how this brings the gap where what is being written, how to do, and what is being done, and that gap brings the causes of accidents, near misses, or the chronic
yeah,
work stresses.
yeah. Would it be fair to say that there's always this sort of a tug of war between speed, productivity, business goals, and so people who are in charge of driving those goals and achieving those targets are always sort of at odds with having to follow the HSE process and sort of feel like it's holding them back. But it feels like it's holding them back only until an incident occurs, right? Would that be a fair thing to say?
Uh, you're touching the real grounds, conditions, what happens actually in the industry. But when you ask my opinion specifically, I don't see it as a that war, or it is a type of war, because it's the mindset how the the organization thinks. So if you really put it together that operation or productivity and the safety are not complementing each other, and normal mindset is the HSE become a blocker for the productivity.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
not true,
Hmm.
because if you integrate the and that's the problem in the system, how you design the thought process, what happens to the to the leadership level.
Hmm.
Because if you go into the any industry, the pressure is normal. The tight deadlines, the complex
Yeah,
interfaces, and the cost constraints, it's always remain, right?
yeah.
So now the key thing is that how you design safety in your day-to-day work planning, and how you execute your planning. That's very important. In
Hmm.
general, what happens is organization thinks HSE is a cost center, so
Yeah.
they develop the HSE as a requirement for getting the certifications.
As a
Good
compliance
system,
item, like a
yeah,
check
good
mark.
good system on the paper,
Yeah,
tick box exercise, but when they come to the real world environment, they feel like, if we go through the HSE processes, it delays our productivity. And
yeah.
that is a, very bad concept among the, boardrooms. So they should not think that HSE is a cost center for them, and the investing in HSE is, reducing their bottom line. But where I see that if you rightly invest in HSE, and if you
Hmm.
integrate HSE into your planning, in your decision making, in setting your KPIs, it means the HSE becomes the strong engine for your reliability, continuity, and long-term profitability. So, in a very simple language, if you have a good investment in HSE and the organization culture is HSE oriented, your downtime will reduce, your
Hmm.
productivity will increase, because no organization in the world, they when they prepare for their budgets, they don't budget for any incidents, they don't budget for any
Yeah,
downtime. And if
yeah,
a single incident happen, like the Texas incident, Gulf of Texas, the BP incident, how much it
yeah,
cost, a single incident, how much it cost to the company.
yeah.
Okay, it was a
And to
BP,
the
okay.
world, actually, in that
Yeah,
case, to the world as well.
it's not only to, yeah, word, to the environment, to the society.
Yeah,
And if, okay, BP was a bigger organization, they sustained that job. If it was a
yeah,
small scale industries or small organization with that type of job, they come out complete, they completely go out from the business.
yeah.
So that's what I say, that if your focus is integrating the planning in your decision making and in your setting KPIs, if you take HSE along with your business, it becomes a good business, good engine for your getting long term profitability, reliability, and your business continuity.
So I hope this insight sort of travels to as many business leaders as possible, and I'd be extremely happy to be proven wrong in thinking that HSE is a compliance item for most leaders. If most leaders sort of like, even if we forget about the HSE processes and requirements and stuff like that, even if we just start thinking of it as a mindset, right? Just having that as a mindset, everything else follows, right? So if that priority is given just because of the mindset. If that's how the thinking happens, then that also can inspire that sort of change, right? And so,
No,
one
you
of the other,
absolutely touch
sure.
you absolutely touch a very good point. So, I'll give you a very
Yeah.
basic example. So
Hmm.
when we go and drive the vehicle, right?
Hmm.
And if you feel that putting a safety harness is becoming a burden to my body or it is creating a stress to my body,
Right, I
right?
see.
On the
Yeah.
other side, if you see that it is my responsibility or it is my, need to put a belt,
Yeah.
like we go to the side and putting a helmet, some people
Yeah.
think that it is putting a, load on your head, whereas other
Yeah.
think that it is going to protect me, right? So
Yeah.
that shift in the mindset is very important.
Hmm. Got it. Got it. The other thing that I've also, so like I've been researching, went through the profile and things like that also. I see you worked across multiple regions as well. And so across India, Oman, broader Gulf, all of these places that you've worked, do you see like a difference in how HSE is looked at or ESG is looked at broader term as well? How that is looked at across different regions? So is the difference in looking at HSE and ESG um, industry specific, like a function of industry, or is it a function of geography? How, like in your opinion, what how it is set up?
See, so fundamentally, if you look, the HSC remains same whether you work in India, you work in Middle East, you work in North Africa,
Hmm.
or you go to any part of the world.
Hmm.
Because we all are a human being, right? And it is in our instinct that everybody want to be safe. Everybody want to be get respected. Everybody want to
Yeah.
get their voice to be heard. And they want a confidence that they go home safe every
Yeah.
day when they finish the work.
Yeah.
But when you point about the how the HEC looks different when you have a different geographical locations or different industry, and that's a big challenge, right? Because it all depends that how mature is your regulatory requirement, how the
Hmm.
enforcement is built. So if it is a corrupted enforcement where things are acceptable, you just move through or you tick box exercise.
Yeah.
Also, it's a industry specific. So if you look into the oil and gas industry, like especially like I've seen in India, I've seen in Oman, I've seen in the North Africa. So
Hmm.
oil and gas industry or high risk industries, because it is a need of the industry that you need to comply for each and every requirement, and then organization get that to the maturity that yeah, it has to be done, and they consider that in all your project budgeting or on your operation budgeting. But if
Hmm.
you go into the different non-oil and gas industry or less risk industries like a construction, there, they take the HSE because the governance and the compliance enforcement is not so strict. So they take
Hmm.
it, yeah, it is acceptable. So
Hmm.
the level of HSE, even in the same country, even in the same geographical locations, it differs from industry to industry, from sector to sector, and also like if you have a big companies or multinational companies, so
Yeah.
HSE become like a core of their business in their planning itself. Whereas if you go into the small scale industries or the local community contractors or the subcontractors, where they are more because they are bidding for the job on the cost aspects, and
Yeah.
to compete with the to become competitive in the market, they try to shortcuts, and especially when the things comes for the shortcutting, it comes from the quality and HSE.
Yeah.
So yeah, you see the difference of HSE compliance. Now when you talk about the India, you have a major workforce as a Indians, but when you come to the Middle East, right? So you have a diverse workforce. So you have
Hmm.
people from the different nationalities. They have a different background, for cultural background. So the HSE become if you look in some places when the person gets into the vehicle as a cultural, he ensure that he wears a seatbelt, right?
Seatbelt.
And in other part, it is
Yeah.
taken whether there is a policeman, I wear the belt.
Then
If
I'll
there is
wear
a
the, yeah.
policeman, then I go in with my luxuries. So
Yeah.
yeah, these all based on your cultural background, your locations, your literacy level, your cultural expectations.
Hmm.
It changes, but again, it's industry driven things. So high risk industries drive more on the HSE, whereas the low risk industries, they put less emphasis on the HSE.
One of the things that I've also noticed is that a lot of the times a large organization, because they are under scrutiny a lot, and there are regular audits and stuff like that, which are third party, and sometimes in critical industries, even audits by the government, right? So a lot of the times what we've seen is that these large organizations, to get around HSE, will have their own HSE processes and everything that they will follow. But then in certain cases, to optimize for the cost and to optimize for the time, they will subcontract it so that they don't have to, like, it's the subcontractors, look out as well, and which is um, and so that's why, right? So that's why, like, processes and everything are important, but it's the mindset that comes first. Like, if the mindset is oriented towards this, then you won't look at HSE as a compromise. And I think that's one of the, like, if this is to the audience, to the people who are listening to this or watching this on whatever platform, I like, if there's one thing that you take away from this conversation, it is that HSE is a mindset, right? It is not a, like, it could be a set of process, but it's a mindset. And the other thing that I wanted to ask you, Dr. Nilesh, was, given the rapid changes, evolving regulations, new technology stacks, global dynamics, like, what are the major risks that organizations should anticipate it, let's say, over the next half a decade or a decade? Like, where do you see the trend moving to?
So yeah, that's a really great question. So and it's really bring a lot of change in the thought process for the HSC professionals. So the way the technology is changing, and it is it's bringing both the positive and the negative uh, together with it. When with the new technological changes, when you have a more AI automations, you have robotics, you have Internet of Things, right? So this can help significantly for improving your HSE. So if the organization invests, so one thing is that how the traditional way of managing HSE has to move from the traditional approach to the tech-based approach. So that's one thing. So it eases in terms of managing the HSE or EAC at the work front, but it
Mhm.
also brings the new cyber physical risk. If it is not handled properly, if you have a more reliance on the technology or without competence of the people, because we need to upskill our people for changing for using these changes in the technology, also the cyber reliances, right? So if we don't handle it properly, it brings the new pathway for the failures, right? Also, the other challenge which the industries are getting is especially the climate change, the global warming and
Hmm.
the associated climate change, the psychosocial risk, especially we have seen after the COVID, right? It has added the psychological safety aspects, because people getting uh, more impacted because of the psychosocial risk rather than the just traditional hazards at the workplace. The
Hmm.
other aspects, like the community expectations, the stress, the fatigue, the burnout, all these are the different focuses which are added on the the HSE shoulders, so that when they do the risk assessment at the workplace, it is not just what you see directly hazards with your activities or with your work or with your operation. You need to also include, or you need to also integrate the additional risk which is associated with the technology, with the psychosocial risk, and all these the burnouts and all other issues. The other challenge what we see is, because the way the industries are expanding with the global supply chains and the the global ecosystem. So if you have any single weak link at any of your in your process, that leads to the larger incidents and your reputational damage. So, for example, if you have a incident isolated at your one location, it is just get escalated to your local community. But when you expand, your one incident can cause impact on your global
Yeah.
image, and that impacts on your bottom line, your
Yeah.
reputation, and also the comfort of the employees, that whether I'm working safely in this organization, or I'm safe in this organization or not. So these are the things which really prompt the organizations to now they need to start thinking to invest in the resilient systems, the
Hmm.
data-driven insights, the multi-skilled teams. So now it's not that you have a mechanical engineer, he just know about the mechanics. He should also be, multi-skilled in terms of using the automations, the robotics or IoTs, right? And also the culture adoptions, right? So when
Hmm.
you work with the different cultural things, how quickly you adopt, how quickly you learn. So now the organization should be thinking in advance, before any incident comes, or before any enforcement comes as a rule, or
Yeah.
from the legal authorities. So now with these all changes, the organizations require a forward thinking, that
Yeah.
they should anticipate what is coming forward, and this is
Yeah.
how it's changed the complete dynamics of HSE professionals as well as the boardrooms.
Yeah. No, I mean, if organizations, I mean, this is if you're waiting for regulations to change, it's already going to be too late, right? If you want to stay ahead of the curve, and that's a sign of a progressive organization that is forward
Resilient
thinking.
organizations, yeah.
That Yeah, absolutely, that they are setting the industry best practices, which then later on become regulations for the people who are, or the organizations who are following them. And it's interesting, you touched upon this a little bit earlier, but while you work towards sustainability, and this is something that I wanted to, like, before I let you go, I wanted to ask you a question around this, because I don't understand how these two work together, right? So you mentioned this a little earlier, where you said something around climate as well, and sustainability as well. And so, uh, how are ESG goals, like environment, sustainability, like how are ESG working with HSE? Like, what's the connection, and how do you link that with the environmental responsibility, long-term sustainability? If you could
No,
explain that a little bit.
that's really great question. And most of the organizations now, when they are moving with the HSE and ESG together. Okay, so many of the organization, the ESG is taken care by the financial guys in terms of the reporting in their financial reporting. But to me, ESG and HSE are not the separate agendas. They work together, and these are the different lenses of seeing the responsibilities. But sustainability and ESG, so both are hooked with the safety. So in as a health and safety, we look how we protect the people today, but whereas the sustainability and ESG look that what will be the impact on the people, community, and the environment over a long
Hmm.
term. So in my context, right, there is a big connections between the EAG and HSE, because how we design the life cycle thinking. So now we don't just look into the, in terms of the risk assessment on the operation, we also look the forward, that with this operation, what will be the impact in the future, and this is how the ESG get integrated with the HSE. For example, if we are designing a plant, if you are designing a pipeline, if you're designing a new road, right? So now in the design itself, the EAG and HSE comes together, that how we reduce the energy use, how we reduce the maintenance needs, how we reduce the waste. And in that way, the safer design brings the sustainability as well, right?
Got
So
it.
as part of the ESG is about the social, right? And when we
Hmm.
talk about the social, it talks about the workers welfare, which is very close to the HSE, the community impact, the ethical labor practice, which is again related to the safety.
Hmm.
So it means the core HSE domain, where the E is also about the environment. So in HSE, E is about environment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
E is how we manage the risk assessment for the H and S part. In the same way, we do the risk assessment in terms of the E part, which is, in terms of how we cover the spills, how we reduce the emissions, how we reduce the waste, or how we, responsibly use the resources. So ultimately, if you look about the robust HSE performance, it is the combination of HSE and ESG together, and this is why now many of the organizations, they don't think the ESG and HSE is a separate. It is the integrated integration of how we manage safety, environment, and the social governance, and that is the reason now HSE professionals are getting evolved as a risk and responsible leaders, helping the organization for integrating safety, well-being, and environmental stewardship into the creating a long-term sustainable value for the organizations.
Interesting. It goes on to show a little bit of my ignorance as well, because I when I was showing talking about the abbreviation, I would say HSE, but then I only expanded it to health and safety. I did not include environment. Like it's towards the end of our conversation that that when you pointed out, I realized that, oh, HSE, the E stands for environment, and that's the connection, and that's how progressive forward thinking firms are sort of putting both of them together and just thinking of that as one thing itself. But this has been a brilliant conversation, Dr. Nilesh, and thank you for taking out the time. We've gotten a lot of insights from this conversation. I'm sure if you found value in this conversation, or if you have any questions, do drop in the comments as well, wherever it is that you're watching this or listening to this, whether it is on YouTube or listening to it on Amazon Music or Spotify or Apple Music as well. Do drop in a comment, and happy to answer any questions that you have. Consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. As always, thank you for tuning in. Until next time. Bye bye.
Thank you. So I just want to add one more
Sure,
thing.
sure.
So the mindset of the people or mindset of the boardroom has to change, right? So normally we plan for the reality, not for the perfections. So if organization starts pushing, planning the things in the way that they anticipate what all can go wrong, and then
Hmm.
they integrate that into the planning. Because normally what happens is when something goes wrong under the pressure, uh, the people start getting the shortcuts, right? But if your planning is
Yeah,
very robust, right, it consider what are the failures in terms of the tight way, schedule, the resource issues, the timeline. If you integrate all together, and also if you start developing your frontline workers or frontline supervisors to, especially uh, as a mini CEOs, because these are the people who
oh,
are dealing with the day-to-day, pressure.
yeah,
And if you give them the leadership skills, if you give them the proper insight of the data, so that and if you have clear, guideline that these are my short list of non-negotiables, which will never get compromised, even my schedule get impacted, even my budget get impacted. So if that you know line is clearly set in the organization, it means that gives a clear directive that this is the area where no compromise on the safety, and this is how we integrate HSE into the planning, decision making, and KPIs, and this will really help the organization to increase their profitability, to increase their productivity, and the HSE become hand to hand like your operations, and it gets the real weightage. And it is a it is, HSE is about saving the people. It is
yeah,
about the people, right? So
yeah,
if the boardroom puts themselves in the shoes of others and see that what it makes, because ultimately organizations can get the replacement. So if somebody die or somebody get injured in the at the workplace, you easily get the replacement. But think about the family,
yeah,
that
yeah.
they don't get the replacement for, as a
Absolutely.
son, as a husband, as a wife, as a
As a
daughter,
father,
whatever, right?
yeah,
And second thing, if you are ensuring that people are going every day safe, they are kept every second safe at your workplace, it increases their moral, and
Yeah.
in that way they are more connected with the organization, not as an employer or employee. They take it as a family, and then
Yeah.
it improves the organizational culture.
Yeah.
So I, for this, I initiated two my own, drives. One is go beyond zero. So most of the organization, they look at HSE as a statistics, that how many incidents or how many LTIs happens. Whereas you go beyond the data, see that how positive, influence you do at your workforce or your workforce. And I was also realizing that the workplace, other than the workplace safety, the road safety, even when you are at home with your family, the
Yeah.
road safety is, the biggest concern.
Mhm.
And I drive initiative which called as a drive for family. So it means whenever you are behind the steerings, and if you think what will happen if
Yeah.
I harsh brake, if I
Yeah.
accelerate, I speed, I take wrong overtaking. So whatever I take a action behind the steering, how it is going to impact on my family happiness.
Family.
If that thought process is there, you will never violate or you will not never take the shortcuts. And this
Wow.
this applies same at the workplace or at the on the roads. So basically we this is my message to all the HCC professionals who is seeing this podcast, that you are in a noble job, because people go to the doctor when they are sick or injured, right?
Yeah.
But you as a HSC professional is driving that you don't allow people to go to the doctor because you don't want
Yeah.
them to get injured, right? So it is
Yeah.
a noble profession. So live with this profession, ensure that you build a culture where people self-buy-in, because when there is a self-buy-in by the supervisors or workers at the work front, they will always think HSE from their mind, not because of the compliance reason, because they want to go home safely. And this is what
Safely.
the message I
Okay.
want to give. And the same thing I want to tell to the professionals who are experienced, that please develop the future leaders in HSE or in the ESE, because they are going to drive in future, and they need to adopt technology as a enabler, not see as a blockers. So thank you for having me on this podcast.
No,
Thank you,
thank
Yash.
you for the message. This is a brilliant way to think about it, right? So every time, just generally in life, right? Not even in while I'm doing something at my firm or anything like that. Just generally in life, um, just having that as a mindset that my choice, how is that going to improve the stability happiness index of my family, or is that going to decrease it, does that have the potential to decrease it? And just keeping that in mind is a great way to even draft policies for others, and also just how do I conduct myself, right? 30 seconds of adrenaline rush that I will feel when I, push on the accelerator paddle. Is that really worth it? Is a great way to think about it. And so, thank you, sir, for sharing this as an insight and for coming on to our show. We'd love to have you back on, and we'll talk about some other topic that time as well. But thank you for joining it.
I'll be happy to support Yash, and thanks. You're doing a great
Awesome.
job. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.